Hello, everybody. Welcome to No Reserve, part of the Hagerty Podcast Network. We're here to help you make sense of the car market, whether you're buying, selling, or simply watching. Now, this week, the deals have returned. Woo, 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 woo. We have a $5,000 Alfa Romeo, an M3 for less than 30, and a hot hatch from Japan for beer money. Sweet. But then on the other hand, there's an FJ40 that sold for $250,000 and a Bugatti that might top $5 million. Oh well, it's a crapshoot as always. I'm Larry Webster, editor of Hagerty Media.
And I'm Dave Kinney, the publisher of the Hagerty Price Guide.
Now, between us, we've got decades of experience buying, selling, and driving the cars we love. Plus, we're backed by the data of the Hagerty valuation tools. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Larry. Show me those deals.
All right, Dave. We're recording this on Wednesday, November 9th. I think we are seeing some movements in the market. So let's jump right into our opening big segment. You had one in particular you wanted to point out, that Alfa Romeo. What did you like about this thing?
Well, it's an interesting car, Larry, because what's going on is it's a California car. It's actually in Monterey, California, where it's sold out of. This is on the market at Bonhams. Sold for $4,600. That is cheap for a Alfa Romeo Spider from 1979. Now, I will say that if you look at the photos,
Yeah,
you'll see that
it's got a little rust.
yeah, it's got a little rust, but it sold for half of our number four value. Our number four value is 10.2. So, at this kind of money, the disposable 1979 Alfa Romeo Spider is a car that's a reality. It wasn't really presented all that well. I'm going to say that
What
the
are you talking
market.
about? Dave, they photographed this thing right on the Pacific Ocean. What
Okay,
do you
but there's
mean?
not 178 photographs. There's like
Oh, okay,
six.
okay, okay. Yeah.
And I mean, they were, they got the Instamatic out from the 70s, just like you should. They found it in the glove box, and they took the photos and took them down to Photomat and had them done. This was not the way you sell a car in 2022, and maybe that helped the thing stay low. There was very little information. The price stay low. There's very little information about it. The interesting thing is that it had a British number plate on the front. Apparently, the car had spent some time in Britain, which, of course, is another home of rust, as opposed to Monterey, California, which, as long as you keep it away from the sea, would be just fine. But cheap car, really
I
cheap.
thought this is super cool. I appreciate you bringing this one up because under $5,000, Italian roadster. Now, I mean, 1979, these things were pretty neutered in terms of the horsepower department, and
Yep.
nobody's going to say they're great handlers, but there's so much charm from the stick shift coming out of the center stack to the wood steering wheel to the entire look of the thing. I was like, oh, wow. For a while, we have not seen any sort of really deals, and maybe this isn't a deal, Dave. Maybe it's just like well bought. Somebody's going to have a lot of fun for not a lot of money. And that engine, that double overhead cam engine is, I don't know, what did they start that thing in the early '60s building that thing? That was a fantastic motor.
Yeah,
Revy,
very
right?
good power plant. We had the whole era of the Spica fuel injection, which this
Sure.
is.
Yeah.
There's issues, but there's always going to be issues with any old car. But hey, at that kind of money, their estimate, Bonham's estimate was between 10 and 15 grand. Somebody either bought it for half the estimated price or 1/3 of the estimated price. That's doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next car I want to talk about is also like there's a few in here that we're going to talk about today that signal perhaps a movement in the market is probably the wrong word, but yet that there's the return of some really pretty good buys if you're watching. This is a 2005 BMW M3 Competition package. That's important. The competition package, they didn't make as many of those. It had stiffer springs. Um, this one sold on Bring a Trailer for $24,500. It did have 122,000 miles. It is
Yep.
located in the Rust Belt in Illinois, but this one looked really clean. And it's a manual transmission, so it's got the crazy, fantastic 330 something horsepower, straight six S54, stick shift, beautiful color, 24 grand. I thought this was really well bought. What did you think?
I agree too. The Interlagos blue metallic, which is a great color, with especially when combined with a tan interior, just a really really nice looking car. I'm not going to say this is half price, but I can tell you that we have these things a lot higher than this in the price guide. I think this is a whale of a deal for a car. with a lot of miles on it. But BMW guys don't seem to be really concerned. BMW guys from this era, that'd be the early 2000s, don't really seem to be concerned about the number of miles. They rather have a pretty good Carfax report, which this has, and the kind of tasteful mods that were done to this. This is
Yeah.
not like a crazy everything changed out car. Just kind of a somebody thought about it before they put the
Well,
stuff on, which is a good thing.
I got to correct myself. I was wrong. It's the SMG single clutch automated manual, and they changed the shift lever, so it sort of looks like a manual on this car, but
Yep.
it's actually. So I'm gonna reverse course. I mean, this is about what that car is worth. That gearbox is terrible. I mean, if
I
you ever
think that
drove one and
the gearbox is terrible, but the car is not. So I
right,
mean, and a lot of them were sold with the automatic and not the manual. But just the same, I think it was a very good buy and a sign that maybe things are cooling down a little bit on some of these things. This is on Bring a Trailer, and frankly, right now it doesn't get any better to sell a BMW of this era than on Bring a Trailer most all times.
yeah, that's true. Well, I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one. I think that's about what it's worth. That
Yeah,
unless you do
I
a
think it's
manual
worth a little more.
swap,
I think it's worth more.
no,
Yeah,
sorry, you're wrong, wrong, wrong,
yeah.
wrong, wrong, wrong.
No, no, wrong,
Okay,
wrong.
you pointed out another oddball, a lot of fun for not a lot of money. Tell us about it.
Oddball, not a lot of fun, or a lot of fun for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's you, Larry. You're talking about a car. 1994 Daihatsu Mira, which is one you'll have to look up. Little tiny, the usual Kia car, whatever. This one's kind of a wagonish looking. It's a hatchback type of thing. $4,700. That's cheap. This is on Cars and Bids. It has a lot going for it in the let's take it to Radwood, let's take it to Cars and Coffee, whatever type of thing. It's a little late for Radwood, but nobody noticed. A 5-speed hot hatch, basically, and this one has a U.S. title, so hopefully that title will stay good in the U.S.
Well,
But
I mean, this
it's
car
cool.
was never sold here. It's a K
Nope.
car, which means this is a class of car in Japan where they couldn't have engines greater than 660 cc. So all through the 80s, the Japanese makers were throwing turbos and double overhead cams and intercoolers and all kinds of cool stuff. And I agree that this car for under 5 grand, it would cost you 6,000 to ship it from Japan. So I
Yeah.
think this is a hell
Yeah.
of a deal for something that's really quite unique and fun and funky and all that stuff.
Let's say it. I think Cars and Bids was the right place to sell this car, and it only brought $4,700. So maybe a online. I mean, sorry, an in person sale would be better because of the cuteness factor on this thing. Because when you see it in person, you just want to go, oh, maybe she wants to come home with me, like a little puppy dog. So we'll see.
Well, it could be, there's other K cars that are really attractive, like the Suzuki Cappuccino, the Honda Beat, that I think enthusiasts, they kind of know what they are. This one, I think, is so weird, and that helps, but also hurts because then you have to explain what it is. It's a Daihatsu, so it's not.
No, you don't have to explain it at all.
What do
What
you
you
mean?
do, it's spelled Mira, right? So you just say, "Oh yeah, I've got a Mira, some other exotic cars," and they'll think you said Mira. So
It is
there you
exotic.
go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Well, okay, that's 3 examples that we just talked about where we think that the prices were reasonable and good, and it doesn't signal like a complete collapse, but maybe does signal that there's some sanity coming back into the market. Is that what you're sensing, Dave? What are you thinking?
Well, just when you think there might be sanity coming back, then you see a '82 Toyota Land Cruiser FJ43 done by the FJ company that sold for 246,690. Let's just call it what it is. It's $250,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, you think this is I think that's a good price for this thing.
I think so too. Now the FJ company completely redoes these cars. They're yes, they have the same body shell. They have a lot of the same stuff as the original. Think of this like like a Bronco build that was done by Gateway or something like that. In some ways, same sort of idea behind it. It's beautiful. It's perfect, and you can never ever take it rock climbing again unless you're a billionaire, because then I guess maybe $250,000 doesn't mean anything to you. But so you're kind of limited in your use, I would say, just speaking personally. But somebody bought the best one that they could find in great colors. It's kind of that light green FJ color that we see everywhere. Really well done. And this again was a bring a trailer sale. $246,690. That's a lot of money.
It's a ton, but if you, let's say you bought an FJ40 for whatever, 50, 60 grand, which about what they go for, and then you tried to replicate this build, it would probably cost you more.
You
What
think so? I'm thinking you could do this for 150.
yeah,
You couldn't get the FJ company badge. I mean, I got that, but I think you could do it.
maybe Dave. I mean, you're pretty handy with a sander. I know you like doing that stuff. So maybe you're thinking a lot of a sweat equity in there, but
Yeah, I'm handy with a credit card more than I'm handy with a sander. I'll tell you that.
well, what I thought super cool about it is a lot of these builds, they throw in a Chevy small block in the engine
Right.
room. And this one, they kept the straight six, which is, a motor that really you can't kill, but is never known for power. And they put a supercharger on it. So, and then they backed it up with a 5-speed. So it's got
Yep.
overdrive. They redid all the suspension. They didn't put crazy wheels and tires on it. They put sort of reasonable things. So this one looks to me like, oh, they expect it to be driven. And nice interior, really well done. I, this thing, I've been thinking about it too. I wish I could own it, but that is a lot of money for something you'll never be able to tent up and be
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it's like a trophy that you put in your case, and your
Mm.
case in this case is the garage, I guess. But it's got air conditioning, vintage air conditioning, Recaro front seats. It still rides like an FJ, I'm sure, in many ways. But it's got a lot of cool build going into it, and a lot of good quality build. I mean, the photos are amazing. But what do you do? I
Well,
mean,
Dave, I got to ask you a question. When I first started going to auctions 5, 6 years ago, without fail, every big public auction for classic cars, expensive classic cars, there was always an FJ40 in the
yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what is
Well,
that?
they exploded. There were a couple that came on the market, probably about I guess it's probably 7 8 years ago, and they were basically unknown in the auction market. But these cars were or these trucks were so well built, they just kind of exuded this great build quality when they were made back to be like a number one quality car. So they went from being a $10 $15,000 who the hell wants it type of thing. All of a sudden, overnight, they became 80 and 90 and then 110 and
Yeah.
$120,000. They've retreated some since then because what happened was everybody drags out their FJ and has restored it. And so a lot more really nice ones came on the market. As a matter of fact, the Hagerty price guide right now tops out at 91.2 on
Oh, is
these.
that a number one car?
That's a number one.
Ooh.
So we've seen some of the numbers kicking up a little bit more. We're going to see more in the hundreds. But at think about it, man. At $250,000, you could buy three really nice ones.
Well, okay. It's really interesting what's happening in the resto mod market. Because singers are worth more in the secondhand market than they cost to build new, right?
Right. Hmm.
And we don't know what the price that FJ company charged for this thing, but it's probably going for a little bit of a premium. I think some of it is it's the instant gratification factor, right? The person at this auction didn't have to wait a year to build it. Granted, they didn't get to put every little piece they wanted in it, but like this thing's going to show up on a truck within a week. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all point and shoot that in that way. So you don't have to make the little decisions. What do you want to do? What rating do you want for your winch? What do you want for this? All that sort of stuff. So it's already done. And there's a lot to be said for point and shoot. And this is still a market where people love the ready to go stuff, and they'll let the stuff that needs just this and just that sit by the wayside.
I
So
mean, I get it. I mean, all those little decisions you can't make is why you have Studebaker Avantis all over the country in various shops. I know. I seen it firsthand.
I mean, the good news is that when I get my cars working, they run for a while. Larry, can you say the same thing?
No comment,
I'm
Dave.
hearing the silence. I'm hearing the silence. Thank you, Lawrence. I
There's
appreciate
a
that.
reason I'm not a professional mechanic. I'll tell you that. Okay, so we just pointed out kind of nutty, but a lot of good value. And here's one that I think this 1979 Porsche 928 with a manual sold on P Car Market for what was it?
83.
83.
83.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought for this car, it's really a terrible color in my view, but presented really well, super duper clean. I thought this was probably about a correct price, especially with that really awesome Pasha interior. You with me
Yeah,
on
that
this?
Yeah, that makes it everything. I don't agree. I think this is a great color. I think petrol blue metallic is a
Ugh,
good color on these cars.
boring.
I'm boring. How about white and silver ones? They're just everywhere. So I'll take the blue over white. Thank you very much. I
Mm.
don't want to have another Porsche refrigerator in my driveway. So and the Pasha interior, we can both agree on. That's the way to go. That for the uninitiated, that's kind of the op-ed black and white print that
It added 20
op-ed
grand to the
op
price of this
art.
car. I mean,
Yeah,
without that, it's
exactly.
20 grand less. I mean, this was such fun because they had the motor out, they rebuilt it. I mean, this car's really been well cared for because 1979, these weren't super fast. They didn't have a ton of power. They weren't as good as the later cars, the GTS models in the late 80s, but it's so fun to look at these and recognize that this was the car that Porsche said was going to replace the 911.
Yeah, yeah. I like the fact that it's a Euro spec model, and we can't not both agree on those phone dial wheels. They're the best,
Oh yeah, all day
and the
long.
best for the 928. So good car, good price.
Yeah.
We see these things top out at about 110 at the price guide, but this is a very good number. I think it's a very reasonable buy for the guy. And again, P car market, great display, good ads.
Yeah, so this is well sold, well bought, just
Yep.
solid. And the new owner has a car I hopefully they can really enjoy. I mean, it looks completely solid. Okay, let's switch. Let's switch out to our kicking tires segment. These are for cars that are coming up for sale in the next week or so. The one that I'm kind of fixated on is it's on Bring a Trailer right now. It's a 2021 Bugatti Chiron. And this is the per sport. This is the highest on the Bugatti range. It's got
Yep.
9 days to go, Dave. It's already at 3.8 million. Where did you get in at? You put in a bid for three and a half, didn't you?
I had to get out at 3.6. I just, I talked to my wife and she said, "Listen, if you can't just pay cash for it, better not finance it." And then again, the Powerball didn't win, so I couldn't get it. So, but
Oh,
I know. Hey, it's okay. I'll get over it. Good color, great car. This could be the most expensive car ever sold on Bring a Trailer when this ends. 3,800,000. It's got 10 days to go. I don't think we're going to see 3,850,000 from the next guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Lots of comments, of course, but it's the right car, the right color, the right, yeah, maybe a little bit less than the right time, but it should do very, very well. Again, I mean, basically a brand new car.
yeah. I mean, these cars are super cool. I love the technology behind them. Technology, what I mean is they've got everything, right? There's 16 cylinders, 4 turbos. They go 200 and I don't even know 50 something miles an hour. You wouldn't have it. This car would not be here without Ferdinand Piech, right? He's
Right.
like the madman mastermind behind the 917, and he is always lurking in the background at VW Porsche. So lots of great stuff about this. This car, the AMG one, the Aston Martin Valkyrie, they're just like these trophy status symbols. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
get bought
gotta have it. Gotta have it for billionaires.
and
Absolutely.
then they get
So,
parked. This thing has 500 miles on it, and
yeah.
it's well, it's not that old, but
It's
it won't
it's
get
one
driven.
year old.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way, I've got less miles on one of my 2022 cars, so I have little room to talk, but, yeah, I mean, probably somebody bought it for an investment. They're getting out and, maybe doing very well on it, by the time it's all over,
So
so
this company is really fun because they behave very much like a coach building place, and
yep.
if you buy a car new, you're gonna know the president intimately. And
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
heard that they're selling also just engines on a stand that you can buy for your garage too, which would be quite a thing to have, I think. So they're totally into the passion of their customers, which I do love.
This is one of 60 of the pure sport models. There is a little bit of model grade inflation with Bugattis. They seem to introduce a new model all the time. This one, however, is an interesting new model. It actually has a lot of differences that are not just cosmetic. So,
Oh,
yeah,
and they keep getting better looking. I mean, that
oh yeah,
that design language, as they refine it and they make it a little more sleeker, I think they're more beautiful with everyone. And this car is like maybe the first one that I look at and go like, holy moly, that thing's freaking cool. So,
yeah, yeah.
but crazy money, crazy, crazy money. Well, we'll be watching. Let's see where it goes. What do you have your eye on?
Well, one that you actually picked out is a 2007 Callaway C16 Speedster. Now, this is a one-off, so it's very hard to say what this thing's going to be worth and what it's going to sell for. It's 6 days out at 155,000 last night. So this is a Corvette done by Callaway, not your regular Callaway Corvette. This is not even a roadster; it's an open top car. It's just a beautiful design. To me, I like the design. I could see where some people didn't. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this, last gen Corvette C16 Speedster by Callaway. What it does.
Well, I don't know my timeline really well, but I was wondering because Ferrari has that SP3 Monza, which is basically
Hmm.
their version of this car, front engine, but with no windshield, and those things are super valuable. So this is maybe a regular person's version of it. Um,
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, this was on the lawn at Pebble, not on the lawn, but actually on the display lawn at Pebble in 2007. So, I mean, a lot of people have seen it before. It's Callaway, which is a good name in the Corvette world. But we're going to see what happened. I think at 155, it's awful damn cheap.
well, it's a, I don't know. It is a one-off. It's very special. It's beautiful. But I'm a functional guy, and this one is, you really can't use it. It has no top, and at the end of the day, it's still a Corvette, which you can get a ton of them for 50 grand or less. So, well, I guess we'll keep a watch, and, I'd be surprised if it goes over 200, but let's face it, I've been wrong many, many times before. The one that I'm really keen on is this 1972 Oldsmobile Hearst Olds. It's an Indy 500 pace car that's going to be sold at the Broad Arrow auctions in Palm Beach in about 10 days. These Hearst cars are super interesting to me, Dave, because I think I'm the last, I'm 52. I may be the youngest person that knows what Hearst means.
Yeah, it was everything for racing, in its day, 60s and 70s especially. I mean, Miss Hurst was at all the events. She was still around, Linda Vaughn. Friend of mine got a picture with her just last week, as a matter of fact. So it was, it was one of those things where definitely a social and an automotive icon. We have the Hurstolds topping out at about 73.2. A really good quality one could do better than that, I think. These are 455 motors with 275 horsepower. You know, I was almost calling it a 455 horsepower car. In 1972, that would have been earth shaking, wouldn't it? Anything outside of a race car.
Yeah.
Um, but these things are a lot of fun. They're definitely of the time and the era. They were everywhere in the early 1970s, and now you see them at auctions every once in a while, but not so much like
Yeah.
on the street anymore.
This
They're gone from the street.
This one looks to me like a pretty special car. It has all the original paperwork. It has the original spare tire. Hearst made these performance parts, and they were brilliant marketers. So they were at every drag race with, like you said,
Yep.
Linda Vaughn was like their spokesperson. And this one is unbelievably clean. And so, if this is the car you want, this is time to get it. And a lot of people that probably really wanted this car at the time when it was new couldn't afford it, and now they're probably back thinking this may be my last chance to own something like this. So I think it's going to fetch a pretty dollar when it sells just because how clean it is. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, sounds good. We got another one at Broad Arrow too that we wanted to look at, which was a '94 BMW 850 CSI. The 850s were
Yeah.
hated by people maybe 2 years after production ended, and it was all about you're never going to be able to fix them, electronics, 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 all that sort of stuff. And they bounce back. They have really bounced back, and this one's got a estimate between 120 and 150,000. This is an 850 CSI. There's a number of different 8 series models. I like this one a lot. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. I can't say enough about this car. V12, stick shift, one of the most beautiful BMW coupes ever made. And this car looks to be absolutely pristine shape. I would not want to be the one keeping it running. And hopefully it's totally sorted. But as a time capsule, a moment in time for BMW Grand Touring cars, I don't think they've surpassed this thing in terms of that refinement, specialness, and it just, it was a time when BMW was still, they had some restraint in their design department. Now that seems to be gone, and they're throwing off all these angles and shapes, and they just seem to have totally lost their way. But here it was a beautiful, mature, just a wonderful machine. But yeah, you could have bought this
Well,
for 20 grand not too long ago, right?
exactly, and the 8 Series cars, really got just pummeled by the public, for a number of different reasons. But this is a non-metallic black, which is a great color. It's one of 1,510 850 CSIs built between 92 and 96. That's a pretty good long number of years, and that's worldwide. That's not U.S. market cars. So yeah, I agree. I like these cars a lot. I think we got a lot of ways. It's going to be interesting to see where this
Do
car
you ever
sells
own one of these,
when it
Dave?
goes. I've never owned an 8 Series. I have a client who bought one when they were literally, like you said, $20,000, $30,000 cars. It was a trade-in at his local BMW dealer. He lives in Pennsylvania, and he said to me when I looked at it, everybody said no. Don't buy it. It's a trouble. Everything else. And he said he looked at it. He walked around. He said, "You know what? It's a damn beautiful
Yeah.
car, and I really don't care about all these people's opinion on what's going to go wrong and everything else. I'm a car guy. I'm going to buy it." So he probably bought in at around the $30,000 mark, right off the used car lot. The trade in that even the BMW dealer didn't want, and now it's his, and he's going to have the last
So
laugh.
he still has it.
Yes, he does. By the way, on the HPG guide, these things top out at 257,000 with a number two, which is a really, really decent car, topping out at 172. Even our number four is up to 57.4 now. And like you said, it wasn't that long ago you could not give one of
Yeah,
these
I
away.
guess people figure out. I remember it was what I liked about them is they were so comfortable and quiet, but they didn't go all the way luxury like an SL of the era did. These were still there when I just joined Car and Driver, so I did get some time in it. I was an M3 guy, younger, sporty, faster, but I really appreciated how these things blended that sportiness, that agility, but with also this sort of like heft and this Germanness where they're Autobahn bred cars. They could do 150 on the Autobahn for hours and hours and hours, just completely comfortable. So I love
And
one of
and
these.
I think we're going to find the non-modified cars like this one are going to be the ones that bring the most. And so it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, estimate 120 to 150. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's move on to our questions. Bill from Fairbanks, Alaska. He's like, when do you think we'll see mass market stuff like the C7 Grand Sport retreat off of their pandemic values? Like C7s in particular, Dave, they're still, the Corvettes, the C5s, they got crazy cheap. 15, 20 grand got you a good one. And all of us are hoping the C7 does the same, and it's not doing it yet. What's
No, it's not. And I mean, the Grand Sport was, the car to have. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot more depreciation on those. It's going to be a good question. Yeah, my crystal ball's broken again. What can I say? But
wait, Dave?
I think they're not going to get all that
The
cheap.
Grand Sport probably not, but they made what 15, 20,000 C7s a
Oh
year
yeah,
for 5 or
yeah.
6 years. They got to
Oh
come
yeah,
down.
I mean the Corvettes themselves are going to get cheaper. There's no doubt
Okay.
about that. But you can argue that the C7 is the last of an era too. So there might be a lot of people who just want the kind of, how do I put it nicely, non-complexity of a C7 over a C8.
They are brilliant cars. I mean, comparatively, I don't know if they're recognized for the step change, the C7, which I think it came out in 2012-ish, 2011, 2012. The step change in terms of handling and feel from the C6 to the C7 is, it's light years different. And the one you want, in my view, is the regular Z51 with the stick shift and pretty much nothing else. I mean, they sound great. They shift. They got tons of power. They're brilliant, brilliant cars, and it seems like the market recognizes that, which means they're not like used car lot prices anytime soon, which bums me out because I kind of want one someday.
Well, yeah, I don't think we're going to see, the special ones, the incredibly low miles ones, the Grand Sports, some of the other, production, fun packages that they have, probably be the last to go down. But I don't see them going down. I see the regular, used 80,000 mile ones. Yeah, they're not going to hold their value all that much. But a lot of people like the C7 better than the C8. I know that's not a popular thing to say, but there are still
I'm in
plenty
that
of people
camp.
who are. old school.
Yeah,
So there
I'm
you
in
go.
there. Yeah, I think the C7,
Yeah.
I'd rather that, especially for the kind of stuff that I do. Okay, this is gonna be a hard one, Dave. This is gonna challenge all your knowledge. Bud in Dalton, Georgia. He's asking, is there a pre-war car that represents really good value but gets unfairly overlooked? Hmm.
Pre-war car,
Pre-war.
huh?
So that's before when they say that, it's
Wow.
before World War II.
Sure, sure. Uh,
I think I
I
know
could
one.
look.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, you go first then. I'm thinking here.
Okay, it's a 1938 Buick Sedanette. Our colleague Aaron Robinson owns one. And this
Hmm.
car just impressed the I don't know what you wanna call it. It's super impressive. The design is really cool. It's got a fastback with a teardrop shape. The build quality is really, really high. You could tell that Buick was aiming for like a coach builder's like quality in the thing. And if you contrast that with any 50s American car from 15 years or post-war, and you can see what they were doing. All they were doing was trying to build these things as cheap as they can. But in 38, the Buick remained the premium car, and it feels that way. And they're not that expensive. They're well under 20 grand.
Yeah, actually, I've ridden in Aaron's car as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Went on a drive when I was out in California with him. Yeah, that's a good choice. I think maybe there's some lesser marks that are kind of forgotten. Maybe things like Franklin's, which were air cooled cars. I've seen a lot of young people actually gravitate to them because they're just such a, when you think air cooled, everybody in this day and age thinks of the last of
The
the
Beatles. Yeah,
Volkswagen
yeah.
Volkswagen air cooled cars, but there were a lot of air cooled Franklins that were out there. As a matter of fact, the cool thing about the Franklin was they built like a fake radiator front end on a bunch of them where it wasn't even needed, just for acceptance, So I think there's probably a lot. That's a question that we probably should revisit in a couple weeks and come up with a few on our own. How about that? Let's do
Well,
that.
I'm hearing younger people. I mean, younger, so much younger than us, Dave. That's under 50, but no kidding, really under 30 that are buying Model Ts, and it's a bit of a head scratcher to me. But I know somebody who did. He's like in his mid 20s, bought a Model T. He's like, look, these things are really interesting. They're simple to work on. They're so different in terms of how they're built. There's a lot to learn, and they're a completely different analog experience to anything. And 10 grand gets you a pretty good one. So it's happening.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, there are a number of things that should have happened that everybody predicted that would happen, like brass cars were going to go, just drop off the map in terms of values. Well, the high horsepower brass cars are worth more than they've ever been worth because people take them out, they do events with them and everything else. So, conventional wisdom is always conventional, but it's hardly ever wisdom. So,
Did you make that up, Dave?
yeah, I think I found it on a fortune cookie actually, but end of the story is that you do you, and if you think a Model T is the car that you would like to have fun with, I think that's the greatest thing in the world. Cheap and ready to go. You do have to learn how to drive it. It's a different driving experience. Those pedal arrangements, if you go stomping on the wrong pedal, you're going to go in the wrong direction. But obviously, this is the stuff our great great grandfathers, and great grandfathers, and grandmothers grew up with. And so, from that standpoint, I think that's plenty
Yeah.
cool as
I
well.
mean, this is something we cover on insider@hagerty.com all the time is that these cars, they don't go to zero if they get softer in value. They just sort of they kind of hold their own. And we've talked about it before. It's a lot of the MGs that are really charismatic and they're maybe not pre-war, but they're kind of war. Like the MGTF, right? The
Well,
TC
the styling and the driving feel is definitely pre-war.
pre-war.
There's no doubt about
You know,
that.
the
Yeah.
TDs, the Triumph TR3s, super neat cars. You know, they used to be pricey for the average person, but the prices didn't really go up. So now
No,
they're
no.
affordable and fun
Yeah, they pretty well stayed the
things like
same.
that.
So.
So that's what's fun about it. There's a lot of great stuff. And to your point, you got to enjoy what you do. Well, Dave, it's been super interesting. Any final comments from you about this week?
Well, I think that we've learned a few lessons in the classic car market, and one of them is that what goes up does come down. So watch out for buying a car for investment. Always buy it because you love it. Let the investment be the second, third, or fourth thing in the car. But that said, the market's still doing pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tale of multiple markets, right? There's that FJ40, that resto mod that's $250,000, and then there's this Alfa Romeo for less than Miata money. So I think for me, there's those indicators that there's just some sanity coming back, and you're not
Yep.
seeing record after record, and we're not sitting here going, "This is crazy." We're like, "Oh, you know what? I wish I'd bid on that. That's a pretty cool car for that money." So I would tell people, keep your eyes open. This stuff's out there. Hopefully you've saved a little bit of money and you've got it. And I think we're getting into an era where you can get back in really, really safely. And of course, we have our bull market issue coming out in about a month, and we're going to highlight some cars that we think will go up in value. So, kind of an interesting time for sure. Um, so anyway, love to hear from you. Please put your questions in the comments. Definitely share this. Help us spread the word. Subscribe, like. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Um, Definitely thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, buy what you love, and you won't be disappointed. We will catch you next week on No Reserve.